Even though we emphasize that our classes are about learning, not about winning, participants are often eager to know what did we do wrong following a business simulation competition. Oftentimes, it's not that a team does something wrong, it might just be that they didn't make decisions as good as their competitors. However, there are some areas where mistakes are made. There are mistakes in understanding the simulation, which aren't really that important because they are more about software design and modeling assumptions. But then there are business mistakes, or better referred to as business pitfalls, that can impact a firm's performance relative to the competition. Each of these pitfalls offers a powerful learning lesson to reflect upon. For each class, we have developed a list of general business pitfalls, which are industry agnostic, and then there are industry or business model specific pitfalls. I'd like to share some of the general business pitfalls we see frequently play out during our competitions, as well as some of the manufacturing specific pitfalls that occur in our manufacturing simulation. In terms of the general business pitfalls, one category is strategy. Perhaps your strategy was too conservative or too aggressive given the marketplace. Maybe your strategy lacked synergy or focus, and you never really kind of got a series of decisions that were all aligned with one another that really kind of built up some momentum. Or sometimes teams don't have a strategy or they found it too late, and they find that they're always reactive as opposed to proactive. The second category of pitfalls is leadership team. Maybe the team lacked alignment, communication, or time management skills. Maybe the discussions that the leadership team had were more about management or in the business versus leadership or on the business type of discussions. And maybe you were sub-optimizing one area of the business and perhaps not looking at the big picture. Or maybe you didn't effectively tap into your help chain, ask for help. There were many resources available during the simulation, and using these resources could have cleared up some of the confusion and ambiguity. On sales forecasting and production, this is a category specific to the manufacturing business model. Maybe your forecasts were way off. Everything kind of was made or broke based upon the accuracy of that forecast. If you didn't have enough, if your forecasts were too low, you had stockouts. If your forecasts were too high, you'd end up with cash tied up in inventory, and perhaps that inventory was not well positioned and wasn't going to sell very well. Maybe you didn't pay attention to some of the large retooling expenses that occurred when you had production changes, and that would be impacted as well by the sales forecasting. And then maybe you expanded your capacity too quickly or too slowly, and then you found out that you didn't need it, or you had to run too much over capacity because you didn't have any extra capacity. The category of new product development, customer focus, and relevancy, perhaps you were in the wrong boat. Maybe the microsegments that you chose and focused on were just not as profitable as some other microsegments. Perhaps you had too few customers targeted or too many customers targeted. Maybe the strategy that you came up with did not fit the time allowed and the development project timelines, since it took 1 year, 2 years, 3 years sometimes for the new products to enter the marketplace fully. Maybe your strategy didn't account for those lags. Maybe you didn't focus enough on customer sensitivities and care abouts. You didn't stay relevant with their changing expectations and take a look at their focus group. Maybe you gave them too much in terms of features of the product, the interior, styling, safety, quality, horsepower, and you drove excess costs, but they weren't rewarding you with excess margin. You were over-engineering your products. Or maybe you gave them too little and you just weren't keeping up with the changing expectations that they had for what was minimally acceptable. In the area of marketing and distribution, you may have failed to recognize how important dealers are in the equation of success, and that you needed to have good dealerships in order to funnel happy customers to purchase your products. Maybe you did not provide adequate dealer support in terms of discounts or training or advertising, and so the dealers were struggling, which then caused you to struggle. Maybe you failed to drive product awareness or corporate brand, and you weren't marketing enough to build the awareness of your product. Then there's the whole area of competitor analysis. Maybe there was too much or too little competitor analysis. You were paying too much attention or too little attention to the competitors. And then the final bucket is one on financial management. Maybe your contribution or gross margins were not sufficient to drive profits. Maybe you ignored debt for too long and interest rates or interest expense started to build. Maybe you had too much cash sitting around and you weren't distributing that cash and it wasn't working for you. And then finally, maybe you did not focus on the return on investment and fixed cost of some of your investments, like retooling, development centers, capacity expansion, and marketing. So think about these as perhaps common business pitfalls, manufacturing-specific business pitfalls, and ask yourself how well did you do with them, and perhaps there's an opportunity to learn about something that you could do better in the future based upon what you perhaps did not do well at in this competition.